Dear you, I'm fine. You said it the same way you breathed, automatically. Without thinking, it slipped out of your mouth before you even had time to ask yourself whether it was true. And most of the time, no one stopped to question it. They accepted it as complete, as sufficient. As the end of the exchange, you didn't feel dishonest when you said it. That's what made it powerful. You were getting through your days. You were responding to messages. You were meeting expectations. You were functioning in a way that looked steady from the outside. So, fine didn't feel like a lie. It felt like a shortcut. A way to keep things moving. A way to avoid slowing down a moment that didn't feel safe enough to hold something real. At first, it was practical. You didn't want to open a conversation you didn't have the energy to finish. You didn't want to explain feelings that didn't have clean edges. You didn't want to make things awkward or heavy when everyone else seemed to be moving so easily. So you chose the simplest answer, and simplicity became habit. You noticed it in the pause before you spoke. That brief hesitation where something inside you considered saying more, then quietly stepped back. You noticed it when someone asked how you were, and you felt the answer rise before the question fully landed. I'm fine. Came out smooth, practiced, almost comforting. You didn't think of it as hiding. You thought of it as being considerate. You didn't want to burden anyone. You didn't want to make your inner world someone else's responsibility. You had learned slowly, without realizing it, that being easy to be around made you welcome. And being welcome mattered. So you made yourself manageable. You shared stories instead of feelings. Updates instead of experiences. You talked about what you were doing, not what it was costing you. And because no one pushed back, because no one asked twice, you assumed this was normal. You assumed everyone learned to compress themselves eventually. But compression has a cost. It shows up as a quiet loneliness even in company, as the sense that people know your outline, but not your depth, as the feeling that something inside you exists without witness. You didn't feel invisible in an obvious way. People saw you. They liked you. They relied on you. But being seen for your reliability is not the same as being seen for your reality. And over time, that difference began to ache. You wondered if this was just adulthood, if honesty was something you outgrew, if strength meant containment. You told yourself not every feeling deserved space. You told yourself you were doing the mature thing. And yet, there were moments, quiet ones, when you wished someone would stop and ask again, not out of politeness, but out of presence, and stay long enough to hear the real answer. If you're reading this and feeling a slow, familiar pull, it's because many people live this way. They learn to survive socially by being agreeable, composed, and undemanding. They become fluent in fine, even when it stops reflecting who they are inside. You weren't weak for this. You weren't fake. You were adapting in a world that rarely makes room for honesty. Saying, "I'm fine," starts as a social skill, a way to keep interactions smooth and efficient, a way to signal that nothing urgent needs attention. But when it becomes the only answer you give, it slowly turns into a habit of self-erasure. Your past self understands now why this pattern took hold. You valued harmony. You didn't want to disrupt the flow of things. You didn't want to be the person who brought heaviness into a room. So you learned to read the moment before you spoke. You assessed whether honesty would be welcome, and more often than not, you decided it wouldn't be. That decision wasn't fear. It was awareness. You noticed that most spaces weren't built for depth. Conversations moved quickly. People were distracted. Everyone was carrying something. So you adjusted, you edited, you offered the version of yourself that fit. Over time, this taught your nervous system something subtle. Being fully honest wasn't safe or useful. Being contained was rewarded. Being fine kept things predictable, and predictability feels like safety. But safety that requires silence has consequences. You begin to lose touch with your own emotional language. You stop checking in because there's no space to report back. You start to feel distant from yourself. Not because you don't feel, but because you don't express. Your past self sees now that the discomfort you felt wasn't about attention, it was about connection. You didn't want people to fix you, you didn't want reassurance, you wanted to be met, to have your internal experience reflected back to you, even briefly. When that didn't happen, you adapted further. You lowered expectations. You told yourself this was enough. And in doing so, you protected yourself from disappointment, but also from intimacy. Another truth your past self understands now is that people often take us at our word. If you say you're fine, they believe you, not because they don't care, but because they trust your self-report. And when you never revise it, they never learn to. This isn't blame. It's dynamic. You didn't create this alone. You participated in a system that moves quickly and values ease. And once you see that, the self-judgment softens. You stop asking what's wrong with you and start recognizing what hasn't been available. Honesty requires space. Space requires time, and time is something few people feel they have. So you learned to be brief, efficient, contained, but containment, when it becomes default, begins to feel like distance from others and from yourself. I want to speak now to the part of you that is tired of saying fine when it doesn't fit anymore. The part of you that wants to be honest without making a scene. The part of you that longs to be known without having to justify your feelings. You are allowed to tell the truth gently, not all at once, not to everyone, not without discernment, but you are allowed. Honesty doesn't mean oversharing. It means not abandoning yourself in the moment. It means checking in before you answer automatically. It means letting yourself say, I'm okay, but a little tired, or I'm figuring things out, or even, I don't really know right now. Those answers are still simple, but they're real. You don't have to force depth into every interaction. You don't have to demand that others hold your entire inner world. But you can begin to notice when you're silencing yourself out of habit rather than choice. Start small. Notice when fine rises automatically. Pause before you say it. Ask yourself what's actually true in that moment. Truth doesn't have to be heavy, to be honest. Some people may not know how to respond at first. That's okay, you're changing a pattern, and pattern changes often feel awkward before they feel natural. You're not doing anything wrong by allowing more of yourself to be seen. You are not too much for wanting to be understood. You are not weak for needing space to be real. You are not demanding for wanting connection instead of convenience. If you're reading this and feeling relief, it's because many people are quietly tired of compressing themselves. And there is comfort in realizing that honesty doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be quiet, steady, and kind. You don't need to stop being considerate. You don't need to stop being capable. You just need to stop disappearing in your own life. Let your answers grow a little more truthful. Let your presence take up a little more space. Let yourself be human in conversations, not just functional. Over time, you'll notice something shift. You'll feel less distant, less hollow, more rooted in yourself. Not because everyone suddenly understands you perfectly, but because you've stopped leaving yourself out. You don't have to announce this change. You don't have to explain it. Just begin. Sincerely, you.